August 1988, we performed Catherine at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, and it was a great success for all of us, and a time we all look back on fondly. I had said to the group I'd really like to continue and enter it for a local drama festival called the Totton Drama Festival in Hampshire, near to our school in Southampton. And so we were all destined to perform there, and indeed we did. And I came back to some good news, which was that Cambridge University Press came forward and said, we'd like to publish the play, which was wonderful. But they said, in the interim, I wonder if you would consider a title change. So we did. We changed it to Skeleton in the Pantry, and that was the second title we used. We knew that two people weren't going to be with us for the new performances of Skeleton, and we had to replace. So Deanne, they were both the older people, so playing Maureen and John, significant roles. Maureen was taken on by Debbie, who was one of those year 9s who started with Race to be Seen and then came through. She was now in year 10. And then Fawad, who was doing drama at a local sixth form college and friend of our lighting guy, he came in to play John. So he was, at this point, the only seriously older person. And we performed the play in November. It went really, really well. And then we had the news that Catherine, played by Abigail, was going to have to pull out. She sent me the most beautiful letter saying that her schoolwork needed to take priority because I had announced that I'd like them to enter not only the Totton Drama Festival but a national competition which could take us through to July, which was the National Theatre, who had set up a new thing called the Lloyds Bank Theatre Challenge. What's always lovely when someone drops out, and it's always very sad when someone drops out, and we were worried, is that someone else gets a new opportunity. And Sarah, who had been an amazing contributor to the play, she stepped in and took on the role of Catherine. And you can see we used a white makeup, and we based that to make her different from the rest of the cast, to highlight her differences. That was based on Ashes to Ashes video by David Bowie. I'm a big David Bowie fan. Again, Bill Giles' photography. This one was used on the front of this book, Hard to Swallow, Easy to Digest, which was my book for schools. And in it, Sarah says about the binge scene, which is quite interesting hearing her views of the rehearsal. The binge scene always gave rise to questions from the audience. Are you genuinely swallowing all that food? It looks like you are. Followed by, how can you physically binge and digest it on stage? Yes, I really was eating all of it. In direct contrast to some of the stylised scenes in the play, this scene was to be as realistic as possible and conducted in real time. There was never a discussion between Mark and I that we would use any smoke and mirror effects or theatrical devices to fake ingesting that amount of food in that manner. It was a given that I'd do it for real. I remember my first rehearsal of the scene. I laid out the food items in a way I felt comfortable to me, which also let the audience see what was there. Packets of cereals, yoghurt pots, chocolate bars left over from last night's dinner, cold sausages, baked beans, packets of crisps, and the centrepiece, the bird's custard trifle in a glass dish. At this first rehearsal, Mark probably said something really helpful like, "Go!" And dutifully, I went. It was the scene that Mark gave the least feedback on, maybe because he was happy with it, or possibly because it felt a bit awkward or intrusive to watch. Possibly he felt uncomfortable that someone had to actually do it in the first place, without artifice. Her description of that in the book is 2 or 3 pages long, but fascinating to get that little insight from her as an adult, now looking back. And her performance was really powerful, gut-wrenchingly emotional. And that was one of the posters for the Skeleton in the Pantry performance. And then we had the visit of Tony Gouveia from the National Theatre. Oh, we did really well at the Totton Drama Festival. I don't want to get that forgotten in all of this. But we had the visit from Tony Gouveia, And his comments on it were lovely. I'll read it. The audience were tense and riveted to the performance. The ensemble work of the cast was superb. There was some excellent directing. Costumes were consistent and great. Lighting was well used and creative. It's a well-devised and entertaining drama documentary which informs brutally yet sensitively. And then we have the design that I think is my favourite of all of them that have ever happened. This was by Chris Vordin, who's gone on to be a head teacher, a drama teacher and then head teacher. That was actually designed for Skeleton in the Pantry, which we decided to change to Hard to Swallow. We felt that Skeleton in the Pantry was too insensitive, and so we changed it to Hard to Swallow. It was never used because it was for the wrong title, so that was the posters that we used, these two. And then we went to the National Theatre and started to get some amazing coverage. I mean, this was from the Sunday Times and the Independent. What an incredible review we got from the Independent. This play reaches moments of almost unbearable intensity. Naturalistic scenes flow seamlessly into sequences of highly stylised theatre. Maureen Dunbar was in the audience, watching her own bewilderment and grief, conveyed with great empathy and a gentle, eloquent stillness by a girl aged 15, the age at which Catherine Dunbar's fatal anorexia began. We got a great review from The Stage, Times Educational Supplement when we performed it at the National, The Observer, and I look back on the National Theatre moment in my life as probably the professional highlight of my life. I can remember standing and correcting something that had happened on stage and thinking, oh, this is me directing in the National Theatre. It was an incredible experience, made all the more so because my old school, Epping St John's, on the same night were invited to be part of it too. So their play, Daffodil and the Poppy Field, I think it was called, was performed on the same night. And that was the night that Lord Olivier died. So it's a day that's gone down in history. At the end of the performance, Maureen came to us and she said, I want to do something to mark this. I want to give you, and she gave us an enormous amount of money. The cast and I met and we said, we hadn't got any plans to go beyond this, but what should we do? And one of them said, let's go to America. So we did. It meant we had to keep the project, we chose to keep the project going for another year. So there'll be more about this in another episode, our performances in America. And Hard to Swallow was released by Cambridge University Press as a book that started to go into schools. And immediately, unlike anything I'd done before, it sold really, really well. I think it was because it was kind of off the back of a book and a film and people had heard of it. What an experience and what a surprise. I look forward to talking to you next time.